The good news is that the gang is back together here on Locked On Red Sox. The bad news is that the Red Sox offense and the bullpen are just not playing well. What's going on? It's Monday's episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. And the Red Sox offense, the Red Sox pitching, the Red Sox as a whole have been very disappointing, specifically over this last weekend. I am your host, NESN's Lauren Campbell, joined as always by Massachusetts Pirates team insider Jake Ignaszewski. Big shout out to Jake for holding it down for me last week while I was on a much needed vacation. So we're excited to come back as a group here and talk about this weekend series, specifically Saturday's game. There was something in there for everyone, and kind of go into why or how this offense is just always struggling. There's no confidence in this team to hold a lead or come back because there's a big struggle right now, especially with runners in scoring position. So we will touch on that. We'll touch on Garrett Whitlock being one of the only bright spots in this pitching rotation / bullpen. And we're going to talk about what happened in New York with the Yankees and the Guardians. A lot to get to. Jam-packed show. We're super excited. So let's just jump right to it.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the Red Sox dropped the weekend series to the Rays. They did muster one win. Saturday's game was probably the most exciting of the three. There certainly was something there for all kinds of baseball fans. The Red Sox were no-hit through 9 innings. The Rays had a combined no-hitter through 9 full innings. However, the game remained 0-0 at the end of 9. So you went to the 10th. Bobby Dalbec, who has been struggling mightily at the plate, hit a triple to score. JBJ, who was the ghost runner, dumb rule, but that's another conversation for another day. And they ended up going up 2-0 and a Christian Vasquez sac fly. Hansel Robles, who had 20 consecutive scoreless innings, who's been kind of reliable out of this bullpen, much to my surprise, ends up giving up a 2-run walk-off home run to Kevin Kiermaier. He balked in the inning as well. It was just a big struggle of an inning for Robles, which was bound to happen. And then the game should have ended. The Red Sox should have won this game in the 10th inning, in the bottom of the 10th inning, but a Trevor Story error kept the inning alive. And there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about whose fault was it? Was it all on Trevor Story? Was it all on Bobby Dalbec? Story came right out and took the blame. He's like, this is all on me. I don't think Dalbec was positioned correctly, but I do think Story had more time than he realized. But that game was just weird. It was very weird. And I think that's the perfect way to put it. And in all that happened on Saturday was overshadowed because Garrett Whitlock was incredible. He had his first start with the Red Sox. He went 4 innings, only gave up a hit, and struck out 7. I mean, this guy, he deserved all the credit and praise in the world after this game, but it was just such a wonky game that almost his start kind of got overlooked.
It's crazy thinking about a Rays and Red Sox series, scoreless going into the 9th, and you said it perfectly. Whitlock went out there, showed what he could do in 4 innings worth of work. You know, he has just been lights out for the Red Sox so far this season, with an ERA of .66. I don't know if you saw also, Christopher Smith posted a picture of him running up and down on the stairs in Tropicana Field. The man's always trying to get better. He's always trying to figure out a way to up his game. But a very weird game, as you mentioned, on the Dalbec and Story play. It's tough to really figure out exactly whose fault there. You could obviously say Story with how he was positioned with his throw. It's a tough throw though, especially being able to turn around and make that play. Dalbec, as you mentioned, I don't think was positioned perfectly for him to be able to make an easy catch there. But all in all, Trevor Story has looked incredible at second base, has made multiple diving plays, especially on Fridays. During Friday's game, he essentially ended the game on a really nice play there. So it's just a tough way to lose the second game of the series. But ultimately, the offense just needs to be better in that situation. You can't really allow 0 runs going into the ninth and expect to win the game.
Yeah, I mean the offense, this was something going into the season where a lot of fans were very confident in this lineup. And I think we're starting to see the lineup kind of gel and kind of get their bats going. There's a slew of other issues here. They can't score with runners in scoring position. The starting rotation has struggled. Everyone in the bullpen has essentially struggled. And now you're taking out Tanner Houck, who pitched well in his start 2 starts ago and got into the 6th inning. You saw a lot of good positive stuff from him. He's not going to Toronto starting Monday. He'll be out from Monday to Thursday because he's not vaccinated against COVID-19, and you can't go into Canada unless you are vaccinated. So he's out of their rotation. We know that for sure. It makes sense to put Garrett Whitlock in that Thursday start, right?
I think so, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a very similar sort of pitching pattern that we saw on Saturday's game, where you see Whitlock go 4, and then potentially Cutter Crawford go right after him. We saw Crawford pitch really well over 3 innings, striking out 5 during Saturday's game. A really nice bounce back sort of performance from him after he struggled a little bit in his few performances before. But ultimately, I see Whitlock being able to take that game, and all we can do is hope and pray that the Sox can find a way to pile up some wins against these AL East division rivals, or then they're going to continue on piling on sort of that lead for the Blue Jays and the Rays, and they're going to make it difficult for them going into May.
Yeah, you want to get these wins early, especially against AL East teams, because you're going to be competing against the Rays, Yankees, and Blue Jays all season for playoff spots and for the 1 through 4 seeding. With the expanded playoffs, the Red Sox probably will get in regardless. But it doesn't make me feel very confident going into the series against Toronto, because Toronto is a powerhouse. Obviously, we know what they can do. The Red Sox just played them last week at Fenway. So, and even though they're going to see them more, it's just you need to get these wins, and the offense needs to figure it out. The pitchers also need to figure it out. The team itself really just needs to figure it out, and easier said than done. But you want to get these wins out of the way in April. So come September and maybe late August, you're not like, oh, if the Red Sox had just won 2 or 3 games from the Rays, the Red Sox could have swept the series against the Rays. There was times they led the games at every single game this series. They could have swept this series. They could have taken 2 out of 3 easily, and they're not able to put games away thanks to their pitching, thanks to their offense. But Garrett Whitlock, we're talking a lot about him, and he is somebody who's been a bright spot on this team. Like I said, he's probably going to start Thursday in Toronto. But if he continues what he's doing, and I know they've used Tanner Houck out of the bullpen, they used him Sunday out of the bullpen. Does Garrett Whitlock maybe take Tanner Houck's spot, or maybe even Rich Hill's spot in the rotation if he continues to show what he did on Saturday?
I think so. It's and you also gotta put Pavetta in that boat as well.
Yeah, yeah, he
He's
struggled.
his control has been awful, and that even though it is super duper early, I'm curious how much of a leash really Alex Cora and Chaim Bloom are gonna give him to figure stuff out until they essentially move him to the bullpen to work on some stuff. I I think that the Sox are really looking at this as obviously Whitlock's their number one sort of weapon out of that bullpen. They're the guy that they go to when they're in trouble or when they need a few innings that are smooth and where you're not super duper nervous on what's going to actually happen. And so I've liked how Houck has looked so far. Hill and Pavetta have been very on the fence for me. It's been really tough to watch their games when they have started. So I think Hill is definitely the number one person that could be replaced by Whitlock. But we're gonna have to see once again what he's able to potentially do if he does start against the Blue Jays, because we've seen him go 4 innings, but as a starter, I would love to see him be stretched a little bit more, or then you're going to really tax that bullpen.
Yeah, and we've talked about this on several episodes about how you don't want that bullpen to be taxed so early because it's only April. We don't need the relievers here to get injured or to be fatigued by June or by the All-Star break. And then it's just that's a whole nother thing to deal with. That then it's like, Do we trade for pitchers? Do we call people up from Worcester? What in the world do we do? And another issue the Red Sox are facing is the COVID-19 vaccination restrictions going into Canada. So we know for sure Tanner Houck isn't going. We won't know probably until Monday. We are recording this Sunday night, right after Sunday's game. So we don't know who's going other than Tanner Houck. We don't know who's going to be placed on the restricted list, but we do know that there will be others. And that's definitely concerning too, because we don't know who those players are. And if it's somebody who's been producing well, whether that's pitcher or a bat, you're just giving more of an advantage to the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and especially when the Red Sox need it most right now.
Yeah.
One guy, if there's another arm out of the bullpen that isn't able to make it, I would love to see Tyler Danish up again. I was
Yeah,
very,
definitely.
very impressed with how he performed. Even the game that I went to on Wednesday when they played against the Blue Jays, I mean, he had 5 strikeouts over 2 innings, and he was pretty much the only bright spot in that game. Other than the Jerry Remy ceremony, it was a very boring game. But I think that ultimately there needs to be a spark at some point. Something needs to happen to where the Red Sox either get a walk off out of nowhere to where they start playing with a little bit more energy and a little bit more. We even talked about it, a few weeks ago. A little bit more swagger. I just haven't really seen that too much out of this team yet. Even though it was only a 5-2 ball game on Sunday's game, I still had no confidence that they were going to be able to come back. And that's not fun as a fan, especially, when before the season, as you mentioned, it was funny. So many Twitter accounts, even, Fox Sports Baseball were saying, are the Red Sox offense a top 3 offense in the MLB? And we just have not seen that. And it really shows in the batting average so far. When you look at Story, Devers, Bogarts, and Verdugo, they're batting close to or a little bit under 300. And then when you go to Kike, JBJ, Dalbec, Vasquez, it's a massive drop off. And it's been tough for Vasquez recently. He's been getting robbed a lot. He's had a lot of lineouts, right to the fielders, or has just been rolling over a little bit. But those guys in that bottom part of the order really need to step up, or they're going to keep on piling on these close losses.
We will continue to talk more about this offense, specifically how they fare with runners in scoring position. Spoiler alert, it is not very good. But first, I want to tell you about LinkedIn, because spring is in the air, so it's a time of renewal and growth, personally and professionally. As your small business grows, LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find people you want to talk to faster and for free. You can create a free job post in minutes. You can add your job in the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people to hire. I found my job on LinkedIn. I was reached out to someone from NESN on LinkedIn, and I've been there for just over 4 years now. So it's definitely a really, really good place to find a job. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen. And now for your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On Now podcast. Recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts taking fans through the season like no other network. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So the Red Sox offense, which was something we did not think we'd have to worry about, has been abysmal, to put it very politely. They did win Friday and they lost Saturday and Sunday to the Rays, and they're not putting up enough runs. And when they put up runs, they're not holding on to their lead. So on Friday, they were 3 for 10 with runners in scoring position, and they left 6 men on base. They did win 4-3. Saturday, they were 1 for 4. Sunday, 2 for 6. And then this stat from the Boston Globe's Alex Spear that he posted after Sunday's loss was, I think, just puts it into perspective how silent these Red Sox bats have been. So in the first 5 plate appearances of Sunday's game, the Red Sox went 4 for 5. It was a good start. Jake was texting me and we're like, hell yeah, offense, like, let's go. And the next 29 plate appearances after that, the Red Sox went 2 for 28 with a walk. That's really bad, to, like I said, to put it politely. And it's not it's not going to win you games. You need to be patient at the plate. I am so anti swinging at the first pitch. It was just drilled into my brain growing up playing softball that we just do not swing at the first pitch. And it's just, you see a lot of that. You see a lot of plate impatience, and it's starting to have my impatience just grow more and more. I'm not a patient person to begin with, and just watching these guys just not be patient at the plate is driving me nuts, because I know they're desperate for runs, they're desperate for base runners. I totally understand that. But when you finally have a runner in scoring position, or you have the opportunity to open up the game, tie the game, take the lead, you really need to take advantage of that. And they're just not doing that right now.
Yeah, it's been really tough to watch, and it was funny. I turned on the game a tiny bit late. They were up 2-0. I was like, "What the heck is going on here?" And then, as you mentioned, the bats went absolutely silent right after that, and then ultimately we saw the Rays be able to stack up around 5 runs to ultimately win 5-2. But it's been really tough to be engaged in these games and have any confidence that, as I mentioned in the first segment, that they're going to be able to come back. And that's something that I was looking at the stats, like their chase rate or their chase percentage is just insane. And they're 28th right now in walks. That shows perfectly that they're not being patient at the plate.
Yep.
This was something that we also saw during the first half. Specifically, guys were just swinging at pitches all over the place. The strikeouts were stacking up. Ultimately, once we saw Kyle Schwarber come to the team, I don't know what happened. I don't know if he showed them sort of or gave them some tips and tricks on how to be patient at the plate, but we saw them be a little bit more patient. And I think that's going to be super critical for this team, especially being able to try and come back in games. I mean, it's just crazy, how much they dip off after just a little bit of a streak in those first 2 innings.
And Boston Sports Info also tweeted a very concerning stat about their offense. So through the first 16 games, the Red Sox have scored 4 or fewer runs 12 times. I mean, 4 runs should be enough to win you games. We've seen games be won by 1-0, 2-1, but the offense, that just goes to show and continues to show that the offense isn't there yet. And I know it's there. You see glimpses of it. You see them making hard contact. You see the home runs. You see Trevor Story trying to figure out his timing at the plate, and that's finally coming around. But you just see, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's mind-boggling, because they should have this incredible offense. You look at that offense on paper, it's scary. And then you get up there and they're striking out, they're lining out. And some of it is, yes, it's like puck luck in hockey when Brad Marchand hasn't scored a goal in 9 games. It's going to come eventually. And it's going to come for the Red Sox. It's just like, when? And you need to get these wins now, especially with your team going into Toronto shorthanded, with your offense supposed to be stacked in a bullpen that's iffy. You need to put up these runs. You need to be able to score. No, 9 runs isn't sustainable every single game, but 4 runs should be enough to win you games. But you should also be scoring more than 4 runs, especially with the 1 through 6 in your lineup.
Very true. And I wouldn't be surprised if in like the next week or so the Sox put up like 8 runs, 9 runs, or something like that. And
Yeah.
we're all thinking like, let's go, they're back. And then they ultimately come back and only score 2. We just want consistency. As fans, that's all we're asking for. These guys have track records of being able to put up some really big numbers, and we're just not seeing it right now. I don't 100% know if that it's the lineup, the order. I don't know if it needs to be shuffled around at all. But it's and some people were saying on Twitter, it doesn't help that JD Martinez isn't in the lineup. Well, even when he was in the lineup, what was he doing? He wasn't doing anything. And it's just really tough as a fan to be able to think about that. We're talking about at the end of April, this being this much of an issue. I don't really know what's going to have to happen for them to be able to get a spark. I wish I knew the answer. I bet they wish that they knew the answer as well. But I really think that something needs to happen for them to be able to get back on track. I don't know if they need to make a few moves. I don't know. But something just isn't going right.
Yeah, something needs to be done. I'm sure something will be done. There will be some sort of, maybe not major shakeup, but just a simple lineup shuffle calling somebody up from Worcester. I know fans are really getting anxious for Tristan Cassis, and he's going to be here sooner rather than later. So that's obviously something to keep our eye on. But like you said, something needs to happen, and it will. I do think these bats will click eventually, but I don't want it to be a too little too late kind of situation. But something else that happened in the American League was during the end of the Yankees-Guardians game, the Yankees won, and Yankees fans started throwing water bottles and other trash onto the field after they won. Like, you guys won. And Miles Straw, understandably, was very angry about the situation. He said that the Yankees fan base are, quote unquote, the worst fan base on the planet. And I love having friendly trash talk with Yankees fans. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of it with Stacy and Abby of Locked On Yankees down the road. But when your fans resort to throwing stuff onto the field, it's so petty and it's so stupid. And I hate when any fan base does this. I hate when the Celtics fans threw stuff at Kyrie. I hate when the Yankees fans last year threw stuff at Alex Verdugo. I just hate it. It's such a dumb move. You could face charges. You could get banned from ballparks, and your team won. And I know that every fan base has crappy people in it. This doesn't highlight the entire Yankees fan base. I have Yankees friends who are very good people and who are very good friends, but it's just so annoying to see because it doesn't add anything to the game. You're not some big bad person because you threw something at a professional athlete. This is their job. And if the water bottle is full, if the beer can is full, you could seriously hurt someone.
I'm happy you brought this up, and I'm actually really curious to hear, what Stacy and the rest of the Locked On Yankees has to say about this, because it's another example that fans forget that these athletes are human beings as well. And hearing Oscar Mercado, talk about it, sort of. And it was tough to see his face. Like, it was tough to see sort of his reaction to it, because he was in shock, and he was sort of scared of that. These people don't realize that we're a breathing human being as well, and that you could hurt us from literally just throwing these cans, throwing stuff at us. And it's really unfortunate. Sort of, I get the trash talk, I get the chirping, everything like that. And sort of, you heard Miles Straw say. That some of the things that were being said were absolutely horrendous. America, it's freedom of speech, but when you start throwing things and you start trying to injure people, that's where it sort of draws. That's where you got to draw the line. That's where I think we saw what happened with Alex Verdugo last year. There just needs to be change within the security. There needs to be a change within just what fans are and aren't allowed to do. There needs to be more common sense. And I understand that the adrenaline of the game, the adrenaline of what happened, but as you mentioned, they should be cheering. They won. It's not like they lost. And it's unfortunate to sort of see this happen. Even as much as I hate the Yankees, just as a team, just as a Red Sox fan, nobody really wants to see this within a baseball fan base.
No, of course not, because every fan base has a bad rep in some way, shape, or form, and this just only adds to that. And it's like, yeah, okay, Yankees fans, some of them are crappy people. So are some Red Sox fans. So are some Oakland A's fans. So are some Baltimore Orioles fans. The few fans that are still hanging on, but it's like, it's just like you said, they're human beings, and if someone showed up to this person's place of work to berate them and throw water bottles at them, it's one thing to yell at them and like the trash talk, like you said, but when you resort to potentially hurting someone, that's where something needs to change. And I don't know if it's tightened security. I don't know if it's banning these people for life. I think that's extreme, but ban them for the rest of the season or half the season. But it's just silly. Like, stop being rude. It's free to be kind. And it's just, like I said, talk your smack all you want, but stop throwing things onto the field. Stop throwing things at people. It's just silly. You make yourself look silly, and you make your fan base look really silly. Like, because now everyone's like, well, Yankees fans, all of them are trash people. Like, no, they're not. It's a few couple bad eggs doesn't mean the entire fan base is filled with those kinds of people. It's just so annoying. I hate seeing it in any sport. I hate, unless it's like, I don't know, I think it's the Detroit Red Wings who throw, or the Nashville Predators throw like catfish and octopus onto the ice. Weird, but it's it's planned, and that's something that they do. So don't throw things unless it's a hat trick. Don't throw things unless you want to never go to baseball games for the rest of the season. It's just stupid, and I hate it. And I could rant about it all day, but I won't. But what I'm going to do first is tell you about Built Bar before we get into our third and final segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. It's that time of the year. It's April. The weather is nice. Baseball is back, and I'm pretty much all my New Year's resolutions have gone out the window, but not this year. I am sticking to my resolution to eat right, and Built Bar makes that possible. And it's made it very much possible the last week. I've been battling a cold, and Built Bar is really the only thing I want to eat. And the Built Bar Puffs are amazing. If you haven't tried them, you are missing out. They're the first ever protein infused marshmallow. So they're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, obviously, and they're not just a protein bar. They're like a little treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate, just like all other Built Bars. And they're low calorie, they're high protein. If you go to built.com and check out their macros chart, you'll be blown away. Most Built Bars have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And there's a flavor for everyone. Mint brownie, coconut, almond, my personal favorite, cookies and cream. And they're adding new flavors all the time. So if you don't see something now, you certainly will in the near future. And we have an offer for you. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. So in our third and final segment, we will do a quick mental health minute, but we did tweet from the Locked On Red Sox Twitter account how you are feeling about the season so far. And we're only 16 games in. There's plenty of games left to be played. And I feel like a lot of our responses from our listeners and from our followers are roughly around the same. You have Golf Fan who's angry and frustrated. The offense has been pathetic. Boston Blake says the team has potential, just got to put it all together. Doughy Bagels said, meh, stay afloat till Paxton and Sale return and we'll be okay. Tony M, mildly concerned, but still plenty of time to turn it around. Sean, underwhelmed but optimistic. Red Sox fan, annoyed but not quite worried. Red Sox fan again, not worried yet. It's still very early. Main Red Sox fan is there's a lot of good pieces, but they need things to get firing on all cylinders. Joey says not great, but it seems like the Red Sox always struggle in April. So a lot of kind of the same feelings. Like we're not hitting the panic button. The fans, you and me, Jake, we see these problems. And I think those answers are pretty on par. I think that the potential is there. We know it's there. We've seen flashes of this offense and the bullpen pitching well and the starters pitching well. They just need to click. And that's really all it is. And it seems like it's easy enough, but now the Red Sox just need to do it.
Yeah, and one of the biggest responses that I agree with most is what Joey said. It seems like they always kind of struggle in April. I just look back at 2021; they had a 17-10 record in April. Hopefully they can have more of a winning record going into May, and we're not hovering over 500. That's been something that has been really frustrating. But I couldn't agree more with some of these responses. Everybody's saying that they're optimistic. Some people obviously mentioning the Sale and Paxton return could bring sort of a spark to this. Hopefully we don't have to wait until July or June to have that sort of spark. But I think it's nice, really sort of looking forward to what could come in, new month, new beginnings, and especially some guys are still coming back from that shortened spring. We need to remember that stuff. Not so much. As we've said since the start of the season, I expected the pitchers to have a little bit more of a tough time after the shortened spring, but it seems like it's more of the hitters are struggling after not having enough time to be able to really come together and figure out how this lineup is all going to mix together. But ultimately, as you mentioned, 16 games in, so much time to be able to stack up some wins and ultimately get the goal to where we're all hoping for, compete in the AL East and obviously make the playoffs.
Yeah, and Ant, the big guy, I think probably my favorite answer, he said the guys are still adjusting to a short spring training. The focus is lacking, and we need to add some more pitching. 100% agree, but he also is still optimistic. So I'm glad that fans are still optimistic. And I think that's a perfect segue into our mental health minute, because this team has given us every reason to rip our hair out 16 games into the season. We've seen good pitching from pitchers we thought would implode. We've seen bats who we were counting on to produce just kind of go quiet. And fans are still optimistic. And I love this. And I don't know, maybe this is just like a Boston thing because the teams are always in the playoffs. They're always really good. And that's something we're very grateful for, and something that I think is great for younger fans too, to constantly see winning teams. And I think too, we see, 2021, they get swept by the Orioles to begin the season, 2 wins away from the World Series at the end of the day. 2018, you get no hit by Sean Manaea in the Oakland A's early in the season. Turn it around, you win the World Series, right? You win 108 games in the regular season. So there's definitely reason to be optimistic. And I think that it's as impatient as people are growing and as frustrated as people are growing, there's still plenty of reason and plenty of time to get this team turned around, but plenty of reason to still be positive about this team going into May.
Very true. It's been cool to hear other people's opinions about like the New England fan bases. I got it right here. We just like winning, and I think that's, we're just so accustomed to it. And last season, as we talked about, throughout the offseason, the Sox weren't supposed to be as good as they were, and they just need to get to that place where their chemistry is at the peak that it was, especially at the start of the season. We saw them go into the All-Star break with the best record in the league. Nobody really expected that. And I think that they just need to keep on building up that chemistry. They need to, once they start getting on a winning streak, and we start seeing them having fun again, playing the game. I think that's when we're really going to see sort of what we have in this Red Sox team currently. But we know that Chaim Bloom is never satisfied. I see him not being afraid if we get into May or June, and the team isn't performing up to what he expected. I see him making a few moves to not only potentially build up the offense, build up the pitching. Unfortunately, we saw yesterday Malcolm Conforto isn't going to be playing in the 2022 season. So, that dream of him being in a Red Sox uniform on a prove-it deal is out the window. But, we could see them start to sign some pitching pieces, maybe some bench pieces. I'm still waiting for Travis Shaw to not be on the team. I don't know what he's been doing. So hopefully we can get a bat who can actually get a hit over 10 up at bats, and doesn't just fill in for Bobby Dalbec, and can actually do something for this team. But all we can really do is just stay optimistic, be grateful for what we have. But as a fan base, we're just so emotional, and I sort of reminded myself of that when I was in a bar yelling at the TV and realizing how loud I was being. But it is what it is. We're passionate fans, and that's what makes the Boston fan base great.
And hopefully the Red Sox can start stringing together some wins beginning Monday night in Toronto. It's going to be a tough series, but it's going to be a fun series. Hopefully Jake and I can return to you Tuesday with some exciting news about a win or a very exciting game, hopefully. But fingers crossed for that. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Rate, review, and subscribe to Locked On Red Sox right here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast is where you can find us. And don't forget to check out other Locked On shows across the MLB network. Locked On Rays, Blue Jays, A's, Yankees. Everyone's doing an incredible job. We're almost a month into the season, and we're so happy to be back with you full time. Follow the Locked On Red Sox Twitter account at LO_Red Sox, Jake at Jake Iggy, and then me, Lauren, 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. And now that you've made Locked On Red Sox your first listen, head on over to Locked On MLB to make it your second listen. Paul Francis Sullivan, but please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues, both past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. We will be back with you Tuesday. We cannot wait to hopefully recap what will be the start of a nice Red Sox run. We'll see you Tuesday. Let's go Red Sox.